They say one man's trash is another man's treasure, but few could have imagined that a crumbling piece of machinery buried deep in the wilderness could be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. For Parker Schnabel, a modern-day gold miner, with an eye for opportunity and a nose for hidden potential, a chance discovery led to what may become one of the biggest finds in recent mining history. It all started with a tip, just another story passed around by old-timers in the mining community. Whispers about a forgotten site tucked deep in the forest, abandoned when the money ran out and left untouched for decades. Rumors of rusted equipment, scattered tools, and maybe, just maybe, a stockpile of gold-rich dirt that was never processed. Most people shrugged it off. The site was too remote, the story too vague, and the odds of finding anything of value were slim. But Parker wasn't like most people. He had built his career taking risks others wouldn't. The wilderness didn't intimidate him. It intrigued him. With a small crew and some heavy-duty gear, he set out to investigate. The deeper they pushed into the overgrowth, the more inhospitable the terrain became. Trees towered over them like ancient sentinels, and thick underbrush tangled at their feet. After days of difficult travel and endless false leads, they found it, a giant rusted trommel, its skeletal frame covered in moss and grime, its gears frozen in time. At first glance, it looked like junk. The trommel, a cylindrical piece of mining equipment once used to separate gold from sediment, had clearly been out of commission for decades. Vines had wrapped around its base. The metal was corroded and brittle in places. Most people would have walked past it without a second thought, but Parker saw something else. He saw history. He saw potential. This wasn't just any old machine. It was enormous, larger than any trommel he'd ever worked with before. Back in its prime, it would have been a beast, chewing through tons of earth each day. Unlike the modern, precision-built processors used today, this older model relied on brute force. It was built for scale, not finesse. And that was the key. Machines like these often missed the fine gold, the microscopic flakes and dust that today's systems can recover. That meant one thing: gold could still be inside. Parker climbed aboard the rusted frame, brushing away years of caked-on mud. As his hands moved across the steel, something caught the sunlight, a tiny glint embedded in the grime. He paused, heart racing. Was it just light bouncing off a shard of metal? No. It was gold. And not just one flake. There was more. Much more. Inside the drum and around its foundation, he and his team discovered sediment that had never been properly processed. This wasn't just leftover dirt. It was pay dirt, high-grade material that had been primed for extraction but never run through the machine. Suddenly, the rusty old trommel wasn't just a relic. It was a vault, a sleeping giant filled with forgotten riches. But there was a problem. The trommel was in no shape to run. The frame was warped, the gears were locked with rust, and the entire system had sunk slightly into the forest floor. To retrieve any gold, they'd need to bring it back to life. That meant extraction, transportation, restoration, each step. A monumental task. Moving the trommel required an intricate plan. It weighed many tons and was too fragile to lift in one piece. Parker brought in cranes, flatbeds, and engineers to devise a strategy. It took weeks of coordination, but eventually they hauled the enormous machine out of the forest and into a controlled work site where they could begin the restoration. The next phase was grueling. Every single component had to be examined, cleaned, and repaired or replaced. The steel drum had warped over time, requiring custom fabrication. Bearings were fused in place. Screws had rusted into unrecognizable shapes. Yet the team pressed on. They weren't just fixing a machine. They were resurrecting a part of mining history. Modern technology helped immensely. Parker's team created a digital twin of the trommel using 3D modeling software, allowing them to simulate performance, test upgrades, and spot structural flaws before making changes in real life. Drones were flown over the area to create detailed topographical maps, helping locate additional gold-rich zones that may have gone unnoticed by miners decades earlier. As work continued, they made another breakthrough. Hidden beneath the ground, just a few yards from the trommel's original resting place, they discovered a massive stockpile of unprocessed dirt. It appeared that the operation had been shut down mid-run. For reasons still unknown, likely financial, the previous miners had left behind a mountain of material they believed to be valuable. And they were right. Initial tests on the dirt revealed gold concentrations far exceeding Parker's expectations, some of the richest material he had ever seen. But there was no time to build a full-scale wash plant. Instead, they constructed a temporary setup on site, combining classic sluicing techniques with high-efficiency centrifuge systems. Every ounce of gold would be captured. Nothing would be wasted. When the trommel finally roared back to life, it was a moment of triumph. The drum spun, dirt flowed, water sprayed, and within minutes gold started appearing in the sluice. Not just flakes, nuggets. The team watched in awe as a fortune spilled out from the machine, once thought lost to time. Day after day the haul grew, the value soared, millions in gold poured out. But that wasn't all. As they continued to clear and survey the site, Parker's crew stumbled upon something even more incredible, a trove of old mining records tucked away in a collapsed cabin nearby. The documents included hand-drawn maps, operational logs, and site assessments from nearly a century ago. They described not just this site, but a network of locations, all once part of a larger mining enterprise. Some had never been fully excavated. Others had been abandoned due to weather or lack of funding. In effect, Parker had found a blueprint to long-lost gold. The revelation changed everything. The trommel was no longer a curiosity, it was the key to a forgotten gold rush. Parker and his team now had access to historical data pinpointing high-yield gold zones untouched for decades. It was like finding buried treasure with a map drawn by those who had nearly uncovered it before, but they didn't stop there. Inspired by the trommel's revival, Parker launched a broader initiative to locate and restore other abandoned mining machines across the region. Using aerial surveillance, archival research, and ground-penetrating radar, they began tracking down sites that had once been written off. The results were staggering. Across the landscape, they found evidence of rich deposits left behind by outdated equipment and human error. Suddenly, old technology was being given new life, and with it, new fortune. This wasn't just about one machine or one miner. It was a shift in the way people viewed the mining industry. The project demonstrated that innovation doesn't always mean starting from scratch. Sometimes it means looking back, honoring the past while leveraging modern tools to unlock its full potential. What began as a risky salvage mission in the forest had become a movement, a revival. Parker's success proved that treasures aren't always buried deep underground. Sometimes they're hiding in plain sight, camouflaged by rust, forgotten by time, and waiting for someone bold enough to look again. And as the trommel hummed away, spewing gold from the forgotten dirt of a bygone era, one thing became crystal clear. This was just the beginning.